You were born into a world that carries you without effort, gravity tugging at every step, oxygen filling your lungs, sunlight softened by a sky thick with protection. Earth didn't just host life, it engineered it. Bones grew dense beneath its pull, hearts learned to push blood uphill, and minds formed under seasons, oceans, and storms. Humanity is a symphony tuned to one planet. Mars plays no familiar notes. Its air is thinner than memory, its light colder than dawn, its dust older than every human myth. It requires adaptation, sacrifice, and a patience measured in decades, not days. In this journey, we'll explore how that world changes the body, rewires the mind, and reshapes everything we call human. What if the real cost of going to Mars isn't whether you survive, but what you become? If this journey draws you in, consider supporting the channel. Let's begin. On Earth, you weigh what your bones expect. Mars is only 1/3 that. The moment you arrive, your muscles begin to relax, your spine lengthens, and your circulation changes. The body assumes a new normal: lightness, ease, and weakness it does not recognize as danger. For your entire life, your skeleton has held up the mass of your body under a constant pull of 1G. Every step you take sends force through your heels, up your legs, into your hips and spine. You never think about it, but these tiny impacts are what keep you standing today. They are signals, messages written in pressure and friction that tell your cells how dense your bones should be, how strong your muscles must become, how resilient your tendons must remain. Your body listens to gravity constantly. In childhood, it hears it as growth. In adulthood, it hears it as maintenance. On Mars, that voice becomes a whisper. And without that familiar command, the body responds exactly as evolution designed. Within days, your posture begins to change. People imagine astronauts floating freely in space, but on Mars it is different. You feel grounded, yet strangely unburdened. Your back muscles, no longer needed to fight the downward pull, loosen. Your discs decompress. Some settlers may grow several centimeters taller, not through new bone, but through an unfolding of the spine. It feels pleasant. It feels like relief, but nature often disguises decline as comfort. Your legs, the pillars of your body, become the first to falter. Standing, walking, climbing, all activities that require constant effort on Earth, feel effortless in Martian gravity. The muscles that once stabilized every subtle motion slowly begin to fade. They are expensive tissues to maintain, and your body assumes they are no longer necessary. Without resistance, fibers shrink. Without stress, mitochondria quiet. The legs you once trusted for balance and strength begin to belong to a different planet. But the transformation does not stop at the surface. Inside your chest, the heart learns a new rhythm. On Earth, it must pump blood upward against gravity, constantly lifting oxygen toward the brain. On Mars, the task is easier. Your heart muscle relaxes, its walls thinning. At first, you breathe normally and think you're adapting well. In truth, your cardiovascular system is unlearning Earth. The longer you remain, the more complete the physiological rewrite becomes. Return to Earth after months or years, and gravity strikes like a forgotten weight. Colonists describe it as wearing a suit made of lead. Standing becomes a negotiation with dizziness. Walking becomes a careful, staggering effort. The heart, suddenly asked to perform like it once did, struggles. Some faint. Some cannot rise at all. It is not a dramatic failure, it is a simple mechanical one. The human body is a living machine, built for the environment in which it matured. Once retuned, it fights to go back. This is the first barrier to returning home. You may survive the trip, You may land back on Earth, but you will not be the same creature that left. Mars does not just change how you move, it changes what gravity feels like, and over time, what gravity means. Bone is alive. It builds itself in response to force, pressure, and weight. It quietly begins to dissolve, reabsorbing minerals, thinning itself as if preparing for a permanent stay. Most people imagine bones as fixed, rigid structures, white stones buried beneath skin. But human bone is more like coral. It grows, strengthens, and reshapes itself based on signals from your environment. Every time you walk, your femur bends slightly. With each step, microscopic cells called osteocytes sense stress and respond. They summon builders, osteoblasts, to deposit new material. When you lift, jump, or even just stand, your skeleton listens, adapting silently. On Earth, this is effortless. You never notice the conversation happening inside you. On Mars, the conversation ends. With 1/3 gravity, bone no longer receives the mechanical tension it needs. The body mistakes this reduced load for inactivity. To conserve energy, it begins to reclaim material from the densest bones, hips, pelvis, femurs, and vertebrae. Calcium and phosphorus leach into the bloodstream. To your nervous system, this feels like nothing. There is no pain, no warning. It is quiet efficiency, not a medical emergency. Mars makes you lighter, so your skeleton becomes lighter too. The process is slow at first, measured in fractions of a percent each month. But over time, the change compounds. Astronauts in low-gravity environments can lose up to 1% of bone mass every month without intervention. On Mars, where humans must live, not merely travel, that trend becomes lifestyle. Habitats will be pressurized, comfortable, familiar. But every step inside them will carry less weight than the Earth your biology evolved on. You don't notice the danger because you still feel strong. Your legs seem capable, your spine straight. You only realize the truth when you ask more of your bones than they can give. A trip back to Earth would be the moment of revelation. Gravity would return like a forgotten debt. Muscles already weakened by Martian life would strain. Bones that once felt sturdy would be asked to carry triple the load they grew accustomed to. A single misstep could fracture a hip. A casual fall could break a wrist. Even sitting upright for too long could compress vertebrae no longer prepared for Earth's demands. Hospitals would be ready, but biology shows no mercy to nostalgia. Doctors talk about bone loss the same way climatologists discuss erosion. It doesn't matter how strong the mountain once was. If the wind never stops, the shape will change. Mars is constant erosion. There is no ocean to swim against, no hills to climb that force resistance, no gravity that pressures your skeleton into resilience. Slowly, your body becomes native to the red planet, and every day pushes you further from the Earth that built you. No spacecraft or medical team can reverse evolution in progress. A colonist who stays long enough will eventually become someone who cannot come home. Not because they don't want to, but because their bones no longer remember how. A heart evolved for 1G works harder than you think. Lower gravity means less pumping effort. Muscles shrink, chambers relax, and the cardiovascular system slowly forgets how to fight against weight. Returning to 1G becomes a climb Everest-like in reverse. On Earth, each heartbeat is an act of lift. Your blood must be pushed upward against gravity to reach your brain, your lungs, your fingertips. Every second, the heart compresses and expands, a muscular engine designed to operate under constant resistance. You never feel this struggle. You feel the pulse, but not the effort. Yet inside your chest, the left ventricle thickens because it must. It is the power piston of the body. For decades, it has learned your terrain: stairs, hills, sudden runs for a bus, long nights of poor sleep. It adapts to every challenge. On Mars, that challenge evaporates. Your blood no longer weighs as much, and your heart no longer needs to push upward with the same force. It learns the new environment quickly. Within days, the left ventricle begins to lose muscle mass. It becomes a softer, more efficient engine for a world without gravitational demand. The lower workload feels good. You breathe easier. Your pulse slows. You feel in shape without effort. But this comfort is a signal of degradation. Red blood cell production changes too. On Earth, gravity helps keep fluids distributed. On Mars, more blood pools in the upper body. The body responds by reducing volume because it assumes there is too much. Over weeks, your total blood supply shrinks, your vessels constrict, your blood pressure drops. Like a city losing population, the infrastructure scales down. Fewer cells, fewer pathways, a smaller pumping station at the center. Now imagine what happens when you return to Earth. The moment you stand, gravity drags blood toward your legs. A body that has lived months or years without that struggle buckles. Some astronauts faint, others feel waves of nausea, dizziness, or blurred vision. The heart tries to fight, but its muscles are thin. The ventricle cannot generate the force it once could. The circulatory system panics, redistributing blood through reflexes that no longer respond quickly. It is not dramatic. It is quiet collapse. Slow motion, clinical, and deeply vulnerable. Mars compounds this with lifestyle. No one sprints. No one climbs mountain trails or runs across open fields. Inside habitats, movement becomes minimal and intentional. Exercise is scheduled, artificial, engineered through machines that simulate stress. But machines are no replacement for a world. The cardiovascular system learns from experience, not instruction. In a restrained environment, it adapts to what it encounters most. Think of Everest climbers descending from the summit. They return to thicker air and feel relief. Coming back from Mars is the opposite. You descend into weight. Your blood suddenly becomes heavy. Every step is uphill. Every breath is work. Your heart is no longer a warrior. It is peaceful, content, and unprepared. A Martian who stays long enough becomes someone whose heart belongs to Mars. Earth doesn't just feel uncomfortable. It becomes uninhabitable. Not because of radiation or violence, but because your body no longer remembers how to live here. Humans on the International Space Station lose strength rapidly. Mars, though slightly better, still encourages degeneration. The body becomes optimized for standing in a world where effort is optional. On Earth, every movement is resistance training. Rising from a chair forces your thighs and glutes to push you upward against gravity. Walking recruits the calves, the hips, the lower back. Even the muscles in your feet work quietly to stabilize your stride. You are never aware of this because your body evolved to do it without thought. You don't feel effort because you were born into it. Gravity is the load-bearing partner you never asked for but cannot live without. On Mars, that partner is gone. You still move, but your muscles no longer need to pull hard to lift or push. Your mass is unchanged, but the weight of that mass is only a fraction of what it used to be. This distinction matters. Muscles respond not to existence, but to resistance. The less resistance you encounter, the less your muscles believe they must maintain. In the first weeks on Mars, colonists report a strange sensation, not fatigue, but ease. Everyday motions feel lighter, almost playful. Walking requires less concentration. Climbing steps is barely noticeable. This relief comes with a hidden cost. Human muscle loss is brutally efficient. The body does not waste resources on tissues it does not need. Without the stress of gravity, fibers degrade. The largest muscles fade first. Quadriceps, glutes, spinal erectors. These groups are designed to push your center of mass upward and keep you upright. On Mars, they become redundant. You still stand, but it is standing in a world that does not ask anything of them. When they shrink, they don't hurt. They simply stop being necessary. Exercise programs exist, of course. Treadmills with harnesses, resistance bands, weighted suits. But these sessions are artificial. The body treats them as interruptions, not life. A workout may last 1 hour. A normal Earth day provides 16. The ratio is hopeless. You cannot trick evolution with occasional effort. It adapts to the environment you spend most of your time in. Over months, your gait changes. Your legs take shorter steps. Your posture relaxes. Tasks that once required the full chain of muscles from heels to lower back become movements dominated by smaller, fresher groups. Soon, the muscles that usually protect joints, glutes that stabilize hips, core muscles that protect the spine, are diminished. The body compensates by shifting strain to tissues that were never meant to carry it. Then comes the moment of return, if return ever happens. Earth reminds you of your real mass immediately. The same muscles you once used casually now tremble under load. Climbing stairs feels like carrying sandbags. Standing for more than a few minutes ignites aches from joints that forgot how to absorb impact. You look healthy, but without months of reconditioning, your legs cannot sustain you. Mars does not punish the unfit. It rewards the weak. It shapes the human body into something specifically adapted to its low demands. Over time, strength is not simply lost. It is replaced with a new equilibrium, a Martian equilibrium. And once your muscles accept that reality, Earth stops being your home. It becomes a place your body no longer remembers how to survive. Fluids redistribute in low gravity. Blood pools in the upper body. The body compensates by shedding volume. On Mars, your blood chemistry adapts to a thinner atmosphere and lower pressure. Returning home may send dangerous shocks through the circulatory system. Every drop of blood inside you has spent your entire life working against Earth's pull. The veins in your legs are equipped with valves to prevent fluid from sinking downward. Your heart pumps with force to ensure oxygen reaches the brain. Even your muscles assist, pressing against vessels as you walk, climb, or simply stand. On Mars, this elegant system no longer makes sense. The pull is too weak. The valves don't have to fight. The heart no longer needs to lift as hard. Your blood, freed from its lifetime of struggle, drifts upward toward the head and chest. Almost immediately, colonists experience fullness in their faces, puffiness around the eyes, and headaches that feel like sinus pressure. It isn't illness, it's redistribution. Without gravity tugging downward, the upper body becomes a reservoir. Sensors in the neck and brainstem interpret this as fluid overload. They don't understand that gravity is simply weaker. They assume you are drowning. Their response is swift and automatic. They reduce blood volume. You shed plasma in urine. Your circulating fluid decreases. It feels like mild dehydration. But this is adaptation. This change does not stop at the pump. With lower total volume, red blood cell production drops. Fewer oxygen carriers circulate. Fewer platelets form to repair wounds. The entire composition, hematocrit, pH, electrolytes, shifts to match Mars. Your body becomes leaner in every sense, economizing its fluids for a world that never asks them to fight an uphill battle. You can walk miles effortlessly because your blood is lighter, thinner, and lazier. Then there is the atmosphere. Martian air pressure is less than 1% of Earth's. Inside habitats, engineering teams will craft artificial environments of breathable gas. But no habitat perfectly replicates home. Pressure is lower. Oxygen percentages fluctuate. Their bodies respond to this gentle chronic stress by producing more specialized proteins to extract oxygen efficiently. pulmonary tissue remodels. The circulatory system learns how to operate on scarcity, not abundance. This is where the danger hides. Imagine returning to Earth after a year on Mars. You step into an atmosphere with triple the pressure and full gravity. Your cardiovascular system, optimized for thin air and small volume, must suddenly handle dense blood and a heavier body. The veins in your legs will not be ready. The valves will not close on time. Blood will crash downward. Your heart will pump desperately to correct the drop. Many astronauts describe this moment as a spiral. Dizziness, cold sweats, vision tunneling to black. Some collapse. Some cannot even stand. Doctors on Earth would look at your blood work and see numbers that do not belong to a human raised here. They would find a traveler whose body has abandoned its old blueprint and printed a new one. Mars does not just change how blood flows, it changes what blood is. And once it does, Earth becomes a hostile environment, not out of malice, but out of physiology. Your bloodstream simply no longer remembers how to be terrestrial. Astronauts experience swelling within the eye and pressure on the optic nerve. A Martian colony will live with this indefinitely. Sight may shift permanently. Earth's visual norm, blue skies, strong daylight, dense atmosphere. Vision is one of the most delicate systems in the human body. Your retina, optic nerve, and visual cortex are all tuned to Earth's environment. Full gravity, thick air, strong filtering of ultraviolet light, and bright but balanced daylight. On Mars, this entire relationship is rewritten. The first change is mechanical. When blood redistributes in low gravity, fluid moves upward and increases pressure behind the eye. The globe of the eyeball subtly flattens. The optic nerve bends. Objects that were once sharp become hazy, as though viewed through a lens smeared with condensation. For astronauts, this distortion appears after months. For Martians, it becomes the new baseline. Doctors have a name for this: spaceflight-associated neuroocular syndrome. It sounds clinical, but its effects are personal, lingering, and potentially irreversible. The eyes adapt to an environment that never existed in our evolutionary history. They stretch to match the pressure. The tissues remodel. The shape of the eyeball changes, and with it, refraction. People suddenly dependent on glasses may discover that no prescription corrects their vision properly because the underlying anatomy has shifted, not simply the optics. Then there is the light. Mars sits farther from the sun, receiving less energy overall, but the sunlight that does reach the planet is unfiltered. The Martian sky is thin, unable to block most ultraviolet and high-energy radiation. The sunlight comes in cold, harsh, and unprotected. The red dust in the atmosphere gives the sky its ochre tint, scattering wavelengths differently than Earth. The human retina, sculpted by millions of years of blue skies and oceans reflecting sunlight, must now function under constant amber illumination. Over time, the brain learns to interpret that tone as normal. Earth's daylight begins to feel unnatural, overly saturated, almost violent to the eyes. Habitats will try to compensate. LED systems will mimic Earth's day-night cycles. Filters will soften the ultraviolet load. Protective visors will shield colonists during outdoor excursions. But these artificial norms cannot fully replicate the spontaneity of a living planet. The human eye responds not just to brightness, but to contrast, depth cues, and color diversity. In Martian settlements, most visual experiences will exist inside sealed architecture. Repeated interior layouts, controlled lighting, limited horizons, the rods and cones that interpret detail will adapt to this environment. They will become efficient at seeing indoors, not outdoors. Over time, Earth's visual complexity becomes overwhelming. Return to Earth, and the challenges compound. Gravity forces fluid back into the body's lower half, shifting ocular pressure again. Eyes that have stretched slowly may not return to their original shape. Some individuals will find that letters on a page blur, or distant objects shimmer as though underwater. Others will struggle with glare, unable to adjust to a sky that burns with ultraviolet filtered through thick air. Daylight becomes a migraine trigger. Night becomes a haze. Mars does not blind you. It teaches your eyes to see a different world. And once they learn that lesson, the planet that raised you becomes visually unfamiliar, too bright, too blue, too alive for a body that has decided it belongs somewhere else. Mars offers no breathable atmosphere. Its thin CO2 cloak forces humans to live in sealed habitats where oxygen is artificial, humidity controlled, and pressure carefully tuned. Your lungs adapt to the rhythm of machines, not nature. The air you breathe on Earth is invisible stability. Every inhale delivers a cocktail of nitrogen, oxygen, and trace gases shaped by billions of years of biological feedback. Trees, oceans, microbes, weather systems, each of them participates in the sculpting of an atmosphere you never have to think about. You breathe in, you breathe out, and your body adjusts. On Mars, none of that exists. There is no wind you can breathe, no rain-soaked air, no oxygen-enriched breeze after a storm. The atmosphere there is so thin that standing outside without protection is like placing your face against the open vacuum of space. Your lungs are not organs anymore, they are liabilities. Inside a Martian habitat, every breath comes from machinery. Carbon dioxide scrubbers, pressure regulators, oxygen generators, humidity systems, each working non-stop to produce something approximating Earth. The difference is subtle at first. The air tastes metallic, or slightly dry, or strangely sweet depending on the filtration system. Colonists quickly learn to ignore it, but the body does not ignore. With every lungful, the respiratory system recalibrates. Cells in the lining of the bronchi adapt to lower partial pressures of oxygen. Hemoglobin affinity shifts so tissues can draw more oxygen from thinner air. You start to breathe deeper, slower, differently. Humidity, too, changes you. Earth's breathing is wet, oceans evaporate, clouds condense, rain returns moisture to the soil. Habitat air is sterile, bacteria-free, filtered, dry. The mucous membranes in your nose and throat thin out. Protective fluids evaporate faster. Over months, the delicate cilia that sweep debris from your airway weaken. Your lungs become easy targets for irritation, inflammation, and subtle infection. An Earth cold is inconvenient. A Martian infection could be catastrophic. Colonists will step outside often, suited in protective shells, to work, maintain solar arrays, or explore. Their helmets pump chilled air with precise oxygen concentrations, but that air is still artificial. The lungs learn to inhale only what the machines provide. They build tolerance to controlled environments and intolerance to the chaotic variability of nature. Even brief exposure to unfiltered Martian air, if a suit ruptures or a seal fails, pulls moisture from tissue in seconds, freezing it like dew on a winter window. Breathing becomes impossible before panic can finish forming. And then there is Earth. Imagine returning after years on Mars. You step out of the capsule, and the air hits you like a storm. It is thick, heavy, saturated with invisible life, pollen, spores, dust, humidity, bacteria. Your lungs struggle to parse the signals. They expect precision and receive chaos. Some colonists would cough violently for days. Others might feel depthless fatigue, as though their bodies are drowning in abundance. Earth's oxygen concentration feels aggressive to systems optimized for scarcity. Your alveoli, tuned to lean mixtures, flood too quickly. The respiratory muscles tense. Breathing Earth's air becomes work. Mars reshapes your relationship with the most fundamental act of existence. Breathing becomes engineering, not instinct. You trust pressure sensors more than clouds. You trust compressors more than trees. And once the lungs accept manufactured atmosphere as truth, the living sky of Earth becomes alien, a world you no longer know how to inhale. Away from Earth's magnetic shield, cosmic rays penetrate flesh, DNA, and organs. Mars has no global magnetosphere. Each day on the surface is equivalent to a high-altitude flight. Your cells repair as fast as they can and eventually fail. Most people imagine sunlight as the primary danger in space, but what threatens you on Mars is not the gentle warmth of a star. It is the invisible stream of subatomic shrapnel raining down from every direction. On Earth, the magnetosphere bends these particles away, forcing them into auroral curtains at the poles. Our thick atmosphere absorbs the rest. On Mars, there is no such protection. Cosmic radiation arrives unfiltered. It doesn't merely warm skin, it pierces it, passing through tissue, bone, and organs as if you were a thin fog. These particles do not strike softly, they move at relativistic speeds, accelerated by distant supernovae and ancient neutron stars. When they collide with living cells, they tear apart DNA strands in single hits. Sometimes the cell patches the damage, sometimes it mutates. Sometimes it simply never wakes up again. A single cosmic ray can kill the genetic core of a cell without leaving any sensation, like a sniper shot you never hear. Martian colonists will try to shield themselves. Habitats will be covered with regolith, thick layers of soil designed to trap radiation before it reaches the body. But shielding is never perfect. Cosmic rays create secondary showers of particles when they strike material. A layer of stone or metal may block one threat and generate another. It becomes a balancing act. Add shielding to reduce dose, but accept that the shielding itself will create splintered radiation. There is no true refuge, only strategic delay. Over time, even low doses accumulate. On Earth, radiation exposure is measured per year. In orbit or on Mars, exposure is measured per mission, per habitat, per surface excursion. Months translate into doses equivalent to decades of medical X-rays. The body responds with desperate repairs. DNA repair enzymes activate constantly. Cell cycles stall, waiting for molecular surgeons to stitch genetic fragments back together. But the repairs are imperfect. Minor mutations slip through. Some accumulate, and once enough faulty instructions are embedded into cells, the future begins to bend toward cancer. The damage is not limited to DNA. Radiation interacts with blood. It disrupts bone marrow. It accelerates cataracts. It erodes reproductive cells, meaning colonies may one day produce children whose genes already bear quiet scars. The aging process accelerates because cell turnover, the slow replacement of old material with new, becomes compromised. Skin thins earlier. Immune function drops sooner. A colonist in their 30s might return with the physiology of someone much older. Radiation also changes how the body feels fear. On Earth, danger is immediate. A falling branch, a speeding car, a visible threat. On Mars, danger is silent and cumulative. It does not announce itself. You do not feel the moment a particle slices your genome. There is no instinct to warn you. Colonists must learn to fear the invisible and to trust metrics, dosimeters, and schedules more than intuition. Returning to Earth does not erase the damage. It simply stops the clock from advancing as quickly. Others manifest soon after return: abnormal growths, organ dysfunction, immune collapse. Humanity evolved under a planetary shield it never had to understand. On Mars, we live without it, and the sky becomes something dangerous. Not a dome of safety, but a constant, quiet weapon that never sleeps. Martian dust is not soil. It is glassy, electrostatically charged powder. It embeds into suits, machinery, and lungs. It carries toxic perchlorates. On Earth, dust is nuisance. On Mars, it is corrosion, contamination, and cancer. We imagine dust as something soft, something brushed from furniture or wiped from windowsills. Martian dust is different. It is abrasive, sharp, and made of microscopic shards of volcanic glass. Over billions of years, without rain to polish it or weather to grind it down, its edges remain jagged. Grain for grain, it is closer to powdered fiberglass than sand. When colonists walk across the surface, dust lifts and clings. Electrostatic charge makes it adhere to everything. Suit joints, seals, helmet rims, even exposed electronics. It does not fall away. It waits for weakness. On Earth, storms clean themselves. Rain captures particles. Gravity drags them downward. Oceans bury them. Winds may rage at hundreds of kilometers per hour, but the atmosphere is thin, so the force is deceptive. The planet becomes a red snow globe, particles swirling through the sky, drifting into every gap. Settlements will try to keep dust outside, but no barrier is perfect. Every airlock becomes a point of entry. Every suit microfracture becomes a doorway for contamination. When dust gets into machinery, it chews. Gears grind, filters clog, seals erode. A habitat's life support system may run flawlessly for months, then fail overnight because a grain of dust wore down a valve. Solar panels lose efficiency as particles blanket their surfaces, blocking sunlight. Colonists cannot simply wipe them clean. Dust clings to static charge, resisting even aggressive brushing. Over time, layers of particles fuse into a dull coating that steals energy from the settlement. The threat to human biology is worse. Martian regolith contains perchlorates, salts used on Earth in rocket fuel and explosives. They interfere with thyroid function, hormone balance, and metabolic stability. Exposure is not cinematic. It is insidious. A colonist's body doesn't collapse instantly. Instead, fatigue lingers, sleep worsens, appetite changes, and emotional regulation falters. In an environment where every task requires precision, a subtle decline can kill. Dust also attacks the lungs. Inhaled particles slice the delicate linings of the respiratory system. They lodge in bronchi and alveoli, where they remain unchanged for years. Unlike Earth dust, Martian particles contain no biological components for enzymes to break down. Once inside, they are permanent. The lung reacts with inflammation, then with scar tissue. Over time, breathing becomes labored. Oxygen absorption drops. Each inhalation feels like dragging air through sand. If exposure continues long enough, the immune system begins to treat the lungs as an injury site. Cells crowd the damaged areas, forming fibrotic webs. The result is something colonists may mistake for asthma: persistent cough, breathlessness, chest tightness. But this is not a temporary irritation. It is irreversible remodeling. Eventually, these tissues can become precancerous. A single grain inhaled today may be the seed of a tumor decades later. Martian dust is not an inconvenience. It is a force of erosion, not of rock, but of biology and technology. It does not care how careful you are. It does not respect engineering or optimism. It surrounds settlers, infiltrates their lungs, and outlasts their bodies. Sleep cycles shift. Sunlight becomes an alien color. Circadian rhythms break. Levels of cortisol, melatonin, and serotonin drift. A Martian human is not a sleep-deprived Earthling. They are something new, a being adapted to a 24.6-hour day. Your brain is not a clock. It is a rhythm. Every cell in your body, skin, liver, muscles, neurons, keeps time using hormones that synchronize to Earth's 24-hour rotation. The sunrise primes your cortisol, lifting you from sleep. Afternoon light raises alertness. Dusk triggers melatonin, softening thought, preparing the body for rest. Even hunger follows this cycle. Mars disrupts it from the first moment. A Martian sol is 24 hours and 39 minutes long. That difference sounds trivial, but circadian systems are tuned delicately. A body on Mars wakes slightly later each day. It drifts. Sleep arrives when the brain expects dark, but habitats maintain artificial lighting. Melatonin releases at the wrong time. Cortisol spikes too late. The colonist feels like a traveler endlessly crossing time zones, except there is no flight, no jet lag treatment, no final destination where the body stabilizes. The rhythm becomes a spiral, not a loop. Sunlight compounds the confusion. Martian light is thinner and redder, filtered through dust, not atmosphere. The sky does not brighten to blue, it glows in muted rust tones. On Earth, your eyes evolved to use blue wavelengths to anchor the circadian system. On Mars, that anchor is gone. The brain must improvise. It begins to read interior lamps as day and corridor shadows as night. Sleep becomes scheduled by engineers, not by the sun. Colonists will wear light therapy visors, sit beneath calibrated lamps, and follow strict sleep schedules. But biology is stubborn. Hormones respond to environment, not instruction. Melatonin pulses unevenly. Insomnia becomes common. Some settlers sleep in broken segments, 3 hours here, 2 hours there. Others fall into deep, dreamless rest at unpredictable times. They are not simply tired, they are neurologically unmoored. Cortisol, the hormone of action, changes as well. On Mars, every task demands caution. Every leak, every torn suit, every spike in radiation is potentially lethal. The body adapts by keeping cortisol slightly elevated. The colonist feels alert, efficient, focused. They perform well, but stress that high and constant reshapes personality. Patience fades. Emotional volatility increases. Small disagreements become meaningful. The nervous system evolves not around comfort, but around survival. Serotonin, the stabilizer, follows light patterns. With limited sunlight variation and constant artificial illumination, serotonin pathways weaken. The brain compensates with dopamine, short, bright bursts of reward from completed tasks, successful soil harvests, or power system repairs. Settlers become productivity-driven, not socially driven. Conversations shrink. Friendships become functional. People form bonds with machines more easily than with one another, because machines behave predictably. Eventually, something deeper emerges. Martian colonists begin to align with the 24.6-hour cycle naturally. Even when lighting tries to pull them back, their circadian genes respond to the length of the sol. Their bodies take cues from the slight delays in sunrise, from the rhythm of habitat routines, from the quiet, slow pulse of the world around them. Earth's 24-hour cadence becomes uncomfortable, a rhythm that feels rushed, too bright, too quick, like a song played at the wrong speed. A Martian human is not merely tired or jet-lagged, they are hormonally sculpted by a new planet. They wake when Mars tells them to, they sleep when Mars allows it, and if they return to Earth, the sunlight that once guided their ancestors will feel like a stranger, an old conductor trying to lead an orchestra that has already learned an entirely different score. Mars has no storms like Earth. Winds roar across empty plains. Every hazard is invisible. Radiation, leaks, suit tears, oxygen failures. Fear becomes technical, detached, procedural. Danger transforms from instinct to checklist. On Earth, you learned danger the way your ancestors did. A shadow crossing your path, the sudden flash of lightning, the roar of thunder, the smell of smoke. Your nervous system evolved to read the world through patterns of sensation. Fear is visceral, a pounding pulse, a flood of adrenaline, muscles tensing, eyes widening. You step back from cliffs, avoid venomous insects, and run from fire without thinking. These reactions are inherited survival patterns embedded in DNA. Mars rewrites that logic. Here, the deadliest threats are silent. Oxygen loss comes without sound or scent, just a subtle dip on a digital meter. Radiation does not sting or burn. It arrives as numbers on a dosimeter. Habitat breaches announce themselves in graphs and flashing alerts, not in screams of wind. The human brain, built to fear lions and storms, cannot see the predators of Mars. Training becomes the new instinct. Colonists rehearse emergencies repeatedly. Pressure loss drills, airlock failures, carbon dioxide spikes, power outages. The brain internalizes sequences: seal the helmet, check the gauge, close the inner hatch, initiate backup oxygen flow. Emotional response is replaced with procedure. Calm becomes survival. Panic kills. A colonist who freezes for even 5 seconds may not get back up. This changes how people think. Fear is no longer a jolt, it is a calculation. Colonists do not whisper, "I'm scared." They say, "The readings are abnormal." They do not scream, they report. Their stress becomes a series of steps. This makes them efficient, but it also rewires identity. They become technicians of their own lives, engineers of their own survival. On Earth, a storm is a spectacle. On Mars, a storm is a line of text in a weather feed that may bury your solar panels for months. Radiation is the most corrosive form of invisible danger. Colonists learn to treat sunlight like a chemical spill, something to be measured and avoided. A walk outside is not a stroll, it is a timed task. Every minute in open exposure is logged. Every excursion is tracked down to the second. The brain learns to associate risk with the passing of time, not the sight of an approaching threat. Then there's the suit, the thin membrane that separates you from death. A tear is not dramatic. A small puncture is enough. The first sign is not breathlessness, but a pressure drop on a wrist display. Imagine your brain absorbing that lesson. You do not listen to your body. You watch your instruments. Instinct becomes irrelevant. Biology takes a back seat to telemetry. Over months and years, this mindset becomes permanent. Returning to Earth, a former colonist might stand under heavy clouds and feel nothing. Thunder means nothing. Rain means nothing. A sudden loud noise triggers no action. The brain, trained to treat danger as data, ignores the sensory world. It has no reason to fear lightning when lightning isn't lethal. It has been taught that real terror is quiet, incremental, and mathematical. Mars makes survival a system. It teaches humans that emotion is not a tool, that instincts are unreliable, that safety lies not in reflexes, but in discipline. And once the brain accepts that, it never entirely unlearns it. Earth becomes too loud, too chaotic, too primitive, a place where danger does not come with instructions. And that, to a Martian mind, is the most terrifying thing of all. A Martian colony will be smaller than most villages. Social circles shrink, relationships grow intense, fragile, and permanent. Loneliness becomes normal. Quiet becomes the atmosphere. Silence becomes the weather. Humans evolved in tribes of dozens, then villages of hundreds, then cities of millions. We are neurologically wired to exist within a spectrum of social exposure. Casual acquaintances, strangers on sidewalks, family gatherings, workplace routines. This background noise is a form of psychological oxygen. You do not realize how much you depend on it until the sound disappears. On Mars, it disappears on day one. There are no crowds, no parks filled with chatter, no distant traffic murmurs, no random laughter. Only the small circle of people assigned to live beside you, work beside you, and age beside you. isolation comes layered. First is physical distance. Earth is not an hour's flight away. It is a world separated by cold vacuum and months of transit. Family becomes a delay. You say hello and wait minutes for the reply. A conversation stretches like elastic, fragile, and confusing. The smaller the delay, the more your brain forgives it. But on Mars, messages arrive so slowly that ordinary dialogue becomes performance. Words are composed, rehearsed, edited. Authentic connection is diluted by latency. Then comes enclosure. Every wall in a habitat is intentional. Every corridor compresses sound. Your footsteps echo in manufactured air. Conversations occur in sealed modules engineered for survival, not comfort. Private space is scarce. Shared space is mandatory. A colony of 20 people is not 20 choices. It is 20 mirrors. Personal flaws become public. Tempers flare not because someone did something terrible, but because someone exists too closely, too constantly. Relationships intensify. A single harsh comment may resonate for weeks. A whispered rumor becomes the climate. Trust becomes currency. Bonds form not through hobbies or cultural familiarity, but through necessity. You help others because you may need them tomorrow to repair oxygen lines or restore power. Emotional ties merge with survival instincts. Friend becomes colleague. Colleague becomes family, and family becomes unavoidable. Loneliness, oddly, does not vanish. It mutates. You are never physically alone, but you are cosmically alone. You look at the sky and know every other human is far beyond reach. Back on Earth, you could get in a car, walk down a street, talk to a stranger. On Mars, there are no strangers. There are no crowds. There is no anonymity. You are visible always, even when you wish to fade. The mind adapts by retreating inward. People grow quieter. Conversations shrink. Thought becomes private territory. Some colonists will form intense pair bonds, relationships that on Earth would feel desperate or unhealthy, because there is no alternative source of emotional gravity. Others will avoid attachment entirely, terrified of losing the only people who share their world. Grief becomes radioactive. A single death is not a statistic. It is structural damage. It removes a role, a skill, a friend. The colony reorganizes itself around the absence. Over years, isolation stops being punishment. It becomes background radiation. Settlers acclimate to the silence not because they enjoy it, but because the brain eventually bends. It accepts the absence of noise, the absence of strangers, the absence of choice. In that acceptance lies the final shift. The colonist who one day returns to Earth might walk through a busy street and feel overwhelmed, not comforted, not excited, but trapped. The crowd becomes unbearable. The noise, a violation. They may long for the stillness of Mars, because isolation, once internalized, is not a wound, it is a habitat. Earth memories involve green, water, clouds, oceans, birds. Mars offers none. Over years, the human brain rewrites its reference points. Red becomes familiar. Blue becomes mythical. Home becomes a distant story, not a place. The human mind is deeply visual. It does not merely record events, it wraps them in color, sound, and texture. A childhood memory of a park is inseparable from green leaves, the scent of grass, the sound of wind moving through trees. A beach vacation is inseparable from salt air and the rhythmic crash of waves. On Earth, landscapes are not just backgrounds, they are emotional anchors. In a Martian colony, those anchors are cut away. The sky is dusty and pale, the horizon is empty, the horizon never changes. At first, colonists treat this alien environment like an expedition, a temporary setting. They take photos of crater rims and basalt hills, as though collecting souvenirs. They marvel at sunrise as filtered through atmospheric dust. But novelty fades, and something stranger begins. The brain grows accustomed to monotony. The colors of Mars, rust, ochre, shadowed grey, stop feeling alien and simply become morning, noon, and evening. It offers endless variations of barren stillness. Over months, memories begin to soften, not because they are forgotten, but because they lose relevance. The mind is efficient. It prioritizes what is present, what is useful. The memory of rain becomes abstract. You know what rain is, but you cannot feel it anymore. The cool droplets on skin, the metallic smell in clouds. You remember that oceans exist, but your body cannot recall the sensation of waves pushing against the shore. Your recollections become colorless, like faded photographs. A colonist may speak of forest green, as though quoting a myth. Habitat interiors reinforce this shift. Walls are neutral. Lighting is utilitarian. Plants exist only in filtered grow rooms, not in wild ecosystems. There are no natural sounds beyond the hum of air recyclers and heating units. Earth's sensory diversity, birds at dawn, leaves underfoot, rain against rooftops, is replaced by predictable silence. The brain adapts by discarding unnecessary detail. It keeps what it needs: navigation paths, maintenance schedules, repair procedures. Emotional landscapes are not useful in a world that demands constant vigilance. Even dreams change. Colonists report dreaming of Earth in symbols, not sensations. A blue sky with no wind, an ocean without waves, forests reduced to geometric patterns. The subconscious mind compresses complexity into shapes it can store. Blue becomes a conceptual color, not an experience. Green becomes a memory of a memory. Return to Earth, and this neural remapping becomes disorienting. The first encounter with greenery can be overwhelming. Grass ripples like a living fabric. Leaves shimmer in sunlight, bending with unseen logic. Many returning astronauts describe sensory overload, but Mars magnifies it. Home does not feel familiar. It feels chaotic, too alive, too vibrant, too unpredictable. The brain has adjusted to simplicity and finds Earth's abundance excessive. Some settlers will cling to Mars even from afar. They will long for horizons that do not move, for skies that do not surprise, for a world where silence is not absence, but environment. Memory, once reshaped, does not revert easily. Mars rewrites not only what you remember, but what you are capable of remembering. And in that quiet transformation, home ceases to be a planet and becomes a timeline. Something that happened to you once in another life. Martian food will be grown in pressurized greenhouses or printed in labs. Diet becomes controlled, mineral balanced, microbiome engineered. Bodies start to metabolize differently. Earth stomachs may never digest the same way again. Food on Earth is an ecosystem. It comes from soil shaped by rain and microbes, from animals nourished by grass, from oceans teeming with life. Even in cities, where meals arrive packaged and manufactured, every ingredient carries the invisible influence of a living planet. Wild bacteria cling to fruits. Airborne yeast floats into bread. Vegetables collect minerals from ancient riverbeds. Humanity evolved eating this complexity: nutrients, pathogens, chemicals, textures, randomness, all teaching the immune system who to fight and who to welcome. On Mars, that relationship is severed. The first settlements will grow food inside pressurized domes: tomatoes, leafy greens, maybe potatoes, plants chosen not for taste, but for survival. They will grow in hydroponic systems with nutrient solutions measured down to the milligram. Sterile water, sterile substrate, sterile environment. The plants will be safe, but they will be chemically different. Their roots will never touch real soil. Their fibers will never wrestle with drought or wind. They will be optimized to provide calories, not culinary joy. Then there is the protein problem. Mars will not support Earth-style livestock. Cattle, chickens, pigs. They need space, feed, antibiotics, waste disposal. Colonists cannot spare that cost. Instead, they will rely on lab-grown tissue, chicken fillets printed from stem cells, cultured fish, synthetic fats that mimic butter. It will taste close enough, but it will not be meat in the biological sense. It will lack the unpredictable chemicals produced by living animals, hormones, immune molecules, stress compounds, substances that shaped human digestion for millennia. Over months, Martian microbiomes will change. The gut is a rainforest of bacteria, each species honed by exposure to soil, plants, animals, and pathogens. A Martian diet is sterile. There are no microbes clinging to lettuce leaves, no soil bacteria introduced by unwashed carrots, no fermented foods teeming with wild yeast. The gut responds by collapsing its diversity. Instead of thousands of bacterial species negotiating metabolism, only a few remain. They become specialists, optimized for the limited diet provided. This shift is subtle at first. Colonists feel less bloated, less prone to food poisoning. But later, something deeper happens. Their bodies stop knowing how to break down Earth foods. Fiber from real soil-grown vegetables feels foreign. Meat raised in the open field triggers inflammation. Fresh fruit leads to discomfort because its microbial load shocks a system accustomed to sterilized environments. Even nutrient absorption changes. With limited diet variation, cells learn to extract every mineral aggressively. Iron absorption increases, calcium retention improves. A colonist may flourish on Martian spinach, but if they return to Earth and eat a typical meal, rich in unfiltered water, plant chemicals, fat, they may face metabolic chaos. Their body has adapted to scarcity, not abundance. Psychology bends around these meals as well. Martian food is scheduled. There are no restaurants, no spontaneous midnight snacks, no farmers' markets bursting with smells. Meals are rationed, engineered, and optimized. You eat because you must, not because you desire. A child born on Mars may never taste unprocessed fruit. They may never learn that honey has seasons or that cheese is a living thing. When that child visits Earth, its cuisine may feel dangerous, too wild, too microbial, too alive. Martian food does not sustain Earth biology. It creates a new one, and once the body accepts that new foundation, returning home becomes a digestive shock, one that the planet that raised you may no longer be able to heal. A sterile habitat protects you, but it also weakens immunity. Microbial diversity collapses. Friendly bacteria vanish. The immune system goes dormant. Returning to Earth's lush ecosystem can be like stepping into poison. Every day on Earth, you walk through an invisible forest of microorganisms. You breathe spores, swallow bacteria, brush against foreign proteins. Most never hurt you. Many help you. Your immune system learns constantly, like a child surrounded by tutors, adapting, cataloging, deciding which intruders are threats and which are friends. That constant dialogue between body and biosphere is the silent foundation of human life. On Mars, this conversation ends. Habitat interiors must be clean to survive. There is no tolerance for mold, no patience for fungus, no stray microbes drifting through the air unless they were deliberately engineered. Mars is not just barren, it is actively hostile. If contamination blooms in a greenhouse or air duct, it may compromise oxygen production or food supplies. Colonists disinfect surfaces obsessively. They sterilize tools, wash with harsh solutions, and track microbial counts the way Earth hospitals track viral outbreaks. Safety requires clinical precision. The immune system adapts quickly to this vacuum. It downshifts. Without pathogens to fight, lymph nodes shrink. The gut, deprived of living food bacteria, quietly simplifies. Diversity plummets, not just external microbes but internal ones. Your immune defenses learn to sit idle, waiting for signals that never come, and without constant rehearsal, they begin to forget. The first warning signs are subtle. Small cuts heal slowly. Colds take longer to recover from. Allergies vanish, not because the body becomes resilient, but because it stops reacting at all. The immune system transforms from a vigilant guardian into a bureaucrat, present but passive and out of practice. Then comes the shock. A colonist returns to Earth. They step into forests rich with spores, walk through cities thick with human microbes, breathe in sea air teeming with planktonic DNA. To Earth biology, these particles are mostly harmless. To a Martian-adapted immune system, they are invaders. A wave of confusion washes across the body. The dormant defenses reawaken clumsily. They overreact or underreact, striking randomly like soldiers who forgot their training. The simplest exposure becomes dramatic. The smell of flowers triggers inflammation. A sip of untreated water leads to nausea. Eating fresh fruit causes stomach cramps. Even touching soil, rich with billions of microscopic organisms, can cause rashes or infections that the immune system cannot interpret. Earth, once home, becomes a biological minefield. Children born on Mars face something even stranger. Their immune systems would develop in an environment with almost no microbial challenge. They would never face seasonal viruses, common bacteria, or parasites that Earth children encounter in playgrounds and puddles. The first time such a child visits a farm or a public school, their immune system could suffer catastrophic confusion. To them, the planet that nurtured humanity is alien. Doctors could attempt to retrain the body, gradual exposure, controlled reinfection, engineered probiotics, but biology does not respond instantly. The immune system learns slowly. Each mistake can become illness, fever, hospitalization. Some colonists may never fully adjust back. Their bodies would prefer the sterility of Mars, where danger is chemical and mechanical, not biological. Mars does not merely weaken the immune system, it makes it forget. It teaches the body that the safest world is one without life. And once the immune system embraces that lesson, returning to Earth is like stepping into a toxic garden, one where every breath, every surface, every sip feels like an attack from a universe your cells no longer understand. Radiation damages DNA, bone loss mimics elderly physiology, psychological stress mimics chronic disease. A 30-year-old colonist may come home with the biology of someone twice their age. Aging is not a number. It is the accumulation of microscopic failures, cells that repair slower, proteins that fold incorrectly, tissues that struggle to regenerate. On Earth, these failures are gradual, stretched across decades by the protection of atmosphere, magnetosphere, and a planet teeming with life. Mars has none of that. From the moment a human steps onto its surface, the clock begins to tick faster. The body is no longer aging under Earth's gentle pressure. It is aging in a place that was never meant to sustain it. Radiation is the silent engine of this acceleration. Every particle that passes through the body chips at DNA. Your cells attempt repairs, but each attempt comes with imperfections. Mutations accumulate like scratches on glass. A colonist may feel healthy, walking, working, laughing with crewmates, yet their genome tells another story. Broken segments, altered genes, and cellular mitochondria increasingly unable to produce energy efficiently. Cancer risk rises slowly at first, then exponentially. This is not cinematic decay. It is molecular erosion, invisible and inevitable. Bone loss compounds the illusion of youth. Mars makes daily tasks easy. Running requires less effort. Lifting tools feels effortless. The colonist may believe they are strong, even athletic, but their skeleton quietly thins. Osteoporosis, on Earth a disease of aging, becomes an environmental adaptation. Bones fracture more easily. Joints stiffen. The cartilage that cushions motion wears down under altered fluid dynamics. Returning to Earth means asking weakened frames to carry triple the weight they adapted to. What a teenager on Earth could endure, a Martian will experience like an elderly patient. Stress accelerates aging too, but not in the way most imagine. Colonists aren't surrounded by screaming or chaos. Their days are calm, even monotonous, but their brains remain locked in constant risk awareness. Oxygen supply, pressure seals, habitat power, water recycling. Each system demands attention, not emotionally, but cognitively. There is no true off. Each mistake could cost lives. The nervous system responds with chronic cortisol elevation. The heart shifts toward hypervigilance. Sleep becomes shallow. These are the same physiological patterns seen in long-term trauma survivors or ICU nurses who lose years of health to unending responsibility. Mars doesn't terrorize. It exhausts. The social environment adds another layer. Friendships and rivalries are amplified by scarcity. Emotional conflict lingers. Arguments do not dissipate in the background noise of society. They echo within metal walls. Loss hits harder because every person is essential. Bereavement becomes structural damage, not just grief. The psychology of aging is not abstract here. It is experiential. Hair grays earlier. Eyes hold more caution. Youth evaporates not through experience, but through vigilance. Even biology tries to adapt. Telomeres, the protective caps on chromosomes, shorten faster under oxidative stress. Cellular senescence increases. Muscles lose regenerative ability. Immune cells behave like those in much older bodies. Sluggish, indecisive, prone to overreaction. A colonist may look young in photographs, but blood work reveals the truth. A physiology that believes it has lived twice as long. Mars changes people not in decades, but in missions. A human who leaves Earth in their prime will not return as the same age they were on paper. They will carry the cellular scars of a world that demands more than biology was designed to give. On Mars, aging is not counted in candles. It is counted in exposure, in pressure, in long nights, staring at instruments that decide whether you see another day. Future Martians will not share Earth's holidays, songs, or histories. Their rituals revolve around oxygen harvests, solar cycles, and survival milestones. A culture built around fragility, not abundance. Culture is born from environment. Earth's traditions came from harvests, migration, storms, seasons. We celebrate spring because life returns, autumn because food ripens, winter because communities must endure darkness. We write songs about rivers and oceans because they shape our lives. We make myths about mountains and forests because they outlived our ancestors. There are no seasons that nourish anything, no oceans to command awe, no storms that bring rain. The planet does not give, it only withholds. What it provides is absence, silence, and risk. Culture. There will not be Earth's culture with red paint. It will be something entirely new. The first rituals will be practical. A successful oxygen harvest won't be a technical achievement, it will be a holiday. The first time a greenhouse produces food without failure, the colony will celebrate like Earthlings celebrate weddings. A power storage cycle that survives a dust storm will be commemorated in stories. The calendar will not revolve around solstices or harvest moons, but around the anniversaries of survival. There will be a first water extraction day. A year of the long storm. Moments when humanity almost didn't make it and somehow did. Because on Mars, fragility is the foundation of meaning. A single torn suit could define a year. A death in an airlock might become a cautionary ritual repeated by generations, not because of sentimentality, but because every tragedy becomes instruction. Culture will be pragmatic, not decorative. Martian myths will not be about distant gods. They will be about pressure leaks, radiation spikes, and solar panels that failed at the wrong hour. Their heroes will be engineers, botanists, medics, people who solved problems quietly while everyone else slept. Language will drift as well. Earth idioms, breathe easy, go outside, just walk it off, will become dangerous jokes. Martians will not say, under the sky, because the sky is uninhabitable. They may speak instead of being in the envelope, meaning safely inside pressure. They will describe energy budgets as if they are weather. Tomorrow looks dim. Will not mean sadness, it will mean low solar input. Religion may transform too. Earth faiths revolve around creation, suffering, redemption, or harmony with nature. Mars offers no nature to harmonize with. Some colonists will bring beliefs from Earth, but their children may not adopt them. A deity that created oceans and forests will seem irrelevant to a generation born beneath domes. Their spiritual awe will be directed toward the systems that sustain them. Oxygen generators, algae farms, hydroponic racks that glow like cathedrals in the dark. They may kneel not to the sky, but to the pressure gauge that keeps them alive. Then there is art. Paintings will rarely be abstract, they will be schematic. Diagrams of habitat layouts, songs that describe procedures in rhythm, poetry about the quiet between stars. Martian art will be utilitarian, because beauty there is the absence of chaos. A well-organized greenhouse will be a sculpture. A perfectly sealed airlock will be architecture worth admiration. Unspectacular accomplishments will accumulate meaning because they increase the number of tomorrows. Eventually, a Martian child will grow up hearing Earth stories, the way Earth children hear fairy tales. Cities full of strangers, rain that falls from the sky, oceans that can swallow ships, trees older than nations. They will shake their heads and wonder how such a world existed and why anyone would leave it. Because to them, the most alien culture of all will be Earth's, a humanity shaped by abundance, not survival. Words like sunrise, rain, horizon, and sea become strange artifacts. New terms, pressure breach, regolith trap, dust ingress, replace them. Language molds identity, and Mars will invent its own. A human who grew up on Earth carries a vocabulary shaped by life. We name what matters: weather, plants, sky, wildlife, seasons. These words are not mere labels, they are the scaffolding of memory. Rain is not just water falling from clouds, it is relief, scent, childhood, thunder, shelter. Sunrise is warmth, optimism, the beginning of routines. Language forms emotional gravity. On Mars, gravity itself is weaker, and so is the pull of old words. Martian settlers will still speak Earth languages at first, but slowly they will realize half of their vocabulary has been orphaned. There is no forest to walk through. There is no storm that waters crops. The sea is not a region of the planet. It is a memory of home, intangible and unnecessary. Colonists will stop using these terms not because they have forgotten Earth, but because the words will stop doing anything useful. A word that describes nothing in your world becomes dead weight. In its place, new terms will bloom. They will not emerge from poetry, but from survival. Ingress will refer to dust sneaking into airlocks, clogging filters, breach will not be a metaphor for breaking trust. It will be the moment you seal a door before everyone in the room suffocates. Suit integrity will be a phrase spoken as casually as coat zipper. Children will not talk about going outside. They will talk about going extravehicular, because outside means vacuum, exposure, and countdown timers. Language evolves fastest, where life is fragile. On Earth, metaphors grow from nature. It rains like tears. Lightning is jagged fire. Wind whispers. On Mars, language will grow from mechanisms. A colonist might describe someone as bleeding air, meaning anxious or unfocused. Another might say low input, meaning exhausted. Emotion will merge with engineering. A person who doesn't contribute will be off-grid. A relationship that strengthens the colony will be reinforced. Even saying home changes. On Earth, home is fluid, an apartment, a city, a country. On Mars, home is literal atmosphere. Going home means sealing a hatch and stepping into safe pressure. Saying "I'm staying home tonight" might indicate staying inside an access module, because dust levels outside are lethal. Words that once held broad meaning will narrow, sharpen, and harden around real necessity. Generations born on Mars will shift language further. They will not understand why their parents speak nostalgically about rain or the smell of soil. These children may ask, "What is a wave?" And the explanation will sound like technology. Water moved by invisible forces, stretching across miles, crashing endlessly into rock. They will ask why people on Earth caution children not to run near cliffs. On Mars, no child runs near cliffs. No one steps anywhere without a suit, and cliffs do not erode when there is no water to carve them. Eventually, the simplest Earth words may become ceremonial. Ocean might be spoken during remembrance rituals. Storm might refer not to rain, but to solar radiation events. Everyday vocabulary becomes inverted. The language of abundance becomes the language of history. The language of scarcity becomes the language of life. And when a Martian returns to Earth and hears children shouting about rain, or sees someone casually opening a window to feel wind, their mind will trip. The old words will be recognizable, but their meanings will be distorted, like a song they once knew, hummed in a key they cannot follow. Mars will not simply change how humans speak, it will change what humans believe words are for. After years on Mars, the body becomes tuned to 0, 38G. A return to Earth would feel like wearing weights equal to your own body. Organs strain, bones fracture. The heart struggles. Many would never survive the transition. Gravity is the invisible architect of the human body. Every joint, every tendon, every organ formed under the steady pressure of Earth's pull. Your skeleton calcified to hold you upright. Your heart thickened to push blood upward. Your muscles became tight ropes designed to resist the downward force of existence. For millions of years, this full-strength gravity has been the constant condition of life. When you break that constant, you break the body's assumptions, and those assumptions do not rebuild themselves easily. A person who spends years on Mars will begin to feel that the red planet is their natural environment. Climbing stairs, lifting tools, walking in thick boots, all of it feels lighter than childhood memories. They adapt subconsciously, just as a human acclimates to climate or altitude. Their bones trim away unnecessary material. Their muscles relax. Their heart recalibrates its workload. The body becomes an instrument perfectly tuned to a lower note. If you attempt to play it in a higher octave, it shatters. Returning home, gravity strikes instantly. It is not a slow adjustment. It is a sudden collision between biology and physics. A single movement on Earth that once required a comfortable amount of force now demands nearly triple the exertion. Standing becomes a full-body effort. Walking produces unfamiliar strain in ankles and knees. A colonist sits down and feels their own weight press them into the chair like an anchor. Lifting a suitcase feels like dragging a stone through mud. This is not discomfort. It is trauma. Organs suffer as well. The heart, used to pumping blood through a body that weighs barely more than its mass, must now redistribute fluid against Earth's stronger pull. Vessels expand and constrict wildly. Blood pools in the legs. Oxygen delivery falters. Some returning astronauts on short 6-month missions can barely stand for minutes without fainting. Imagine that multiplied across years, compounded by skeletal decay and weakened immune defenses. Bones, already thinned, meet catastrophic demands. The femur that supported you gracefully on Mars becomes brittle when asked to carry Earth weight. A stumble, an unexpected twist, a slip on a wet floor can fracture hips or even vertebrae. The spine compresses, discs bulge, nerves pinch. A body accustomed to gentleness suddenly contends with the original force of evolution, and it loses. There is also the psychological shock. Gravity is invisible until it hurts. Colonists describe it not as a force but as a presence, a pressure that wakes with them, goes to work with them, and never loosens. They report feeling trapped inside their own bodies, as though gravity is not external physics but internal failure. The mind is forced to relearn how to move, how to balance, how to stand in a world where effort and pain are constant companions. Rehabilitation exists, but it is slow and incomplete. Muscles must be rebuilt from scratch. Bone density must be restored through drugs, diet, and resistance machines. Circulatory stability may take months. In some cases, the body simply never returns to baseline. A colonist may regain the ability to walk, to stand, to function, but their internal systems will always remember Mars. Their heart may tire earlier, their bones may crack easier. Even their posture tells the story of a lifetime spent lighter. And for others, there is no rehabilitation, only acceptance. They will never again live comfortably under Earth's sky. Their bodies have already chosen their gravity, and that gravity is not found here. Mars has made a decision on their behalf. They are not returning residents of Earth. They are permanent citizens of a weaker world. Travel to Mars is not a weekend trip. Launch windows open every 26 months. Return trajectories require immense fuel, radiation exposure, and risk. A stranded astronaut is not unlucky. They are predictable. Spaceflight is not like driving across an ocean or flying across a continent. You do not simply point a rocket at Mars and go. Both Earth and Mars orbit the Sun at different speeds and along different paths. Most of the time, they are separated by vast stretches of empty space, moving away from each other like dancers circling opposite ends of a stage. For a ship to travel between them efficiently, the planets must align in a narrow window where gravity, momentum, and fuel cost agree. That window opens roughly every 26 months. Miss it, and you're not delayed. You're trapped. Engineers call it a transfer window, but human psychology calls it fate. Colonists who travel to Mars do so knowing that once they arrive, they will remain there for years until the trajectory allows a return. You cannot simply say, "I want to go home now." Returning requires enough fuel to not only break orbit, but to push yourself onto a months-long trajectory that intersects Earth at the correct moment. A launch at the wrong time sends you into deep space, not back to your family. This is not an adventure. It is a locked system of orbital mechanics. Even when the window opens, the journey back is a long, hostile crossing through radiation-soaked space. Earth's magnetosphere protects life on the surface, but no such shield exists along the path from Mars. Cosmic rays and solar particle events bombard the spacecraft continuously. Each month adds another notch to the biological damage tally. A colonist who leaves Mars has not escaped danger. They are exchanging one type of threat for another, trading dust storms for charged particles that tear through DNA like invisible bullets. Fuel becomes another prison. Rockets must carry not just enough propellant to escape Mars's gravity, but enough to correct mid-course errors, maintain life support, and slow down on approach to Earth. The mass of fuel grows absurd very quickly. For every kilogram of payload, dozens of kilograms of propellant are required. The majority of any interplanetary ship is fuel, not people. Earth's return journey becomes a mathematical burden. Sometimes, the colony simply cannot afford to send anyone back. The physics says no, and the policy follows. The psychological barrier is even larger. Once a Martian colony becomes operational, every member becomes irreplaceable. An engineer who understands the water reclamation system cannot be spared. A biologist who manages the greenhouse is not a passenger. They are infrastructure. To send them home is not a favor. It is a structural loss. Their departure risks everyone else's survival. Earth rarely thinks this way. Mars is forced to. Then there is the survival logic that all spacefarers learn. You do not gamble with transit. You do not rush a launch. A colonist who feels sick, weak, or medically unstable cannot simply return home for treatment. The pressure of re-entry, the acceleration of liftoff, the stresses of spaceflight would kill them. They must recover on Mars, or they never recover at all. Eventually, the law of space becomes more than physics. It becomes identity. A Martian who remains through 2, 3, 4 launch windows will not be seen as someone waiting to go back. They will be seen as someone who lives there. Space does not allow spontaneity. It does not reward nostalgia. Once you commit to Mars, escape becomes rare, costly, and, for many, permanently out of reach. Colonies cost trillions. Every kilogram of cargo is strategic. If you are healthy and useful on Mars, leadership will not spend resources to bring you home. You will be needed, maintained, and retained. On Earth, travel is a commodity. You purchase a ticket and a vehicle takes you across borders. Even the most expensive ship or aircraft exists in an environment built to support it. Fueling stations, airports, spare parts, engineers. Mars dismantles that entire infrastructure. Nothing arrives by accident. Every bolt, every seed, every gram of metal must be launched through a gravity well and carried across millions of kilometers. Colonies are not communities, at least not at first. They are investments. And the people who live there are part of the capital. A single cargo launch may cost hundreds of millions of dollars, sometimes more. Each seat on an interplanetary ship represents not just a passenger, but the equivalent of entire laboratories or life support modules. When a colony is operating, sending someone back to Earth means sending back skill, training, and labor hours that cannot be replaced locally. That is not sentiment, it is logistics. If you are a doctor tending to bone fractures or radiation illness, you are not a resident, you are a resource. Removing you is like unplugging a power generator during winter. Mars will adopt an economy of scarcity. Energy budgets determine what grows, breaks, or survives. Manufacturing is limited by material stock. Every meal is quantified. Every tool has a projected lifespan. To return someone to Earth is to burn oxygen, fuel, and labor that could instead expand hydroponic capacity or repair water lines. Even if a colonist begs to return, the calculation is cold. What do they produce here, and what will their absence cost? Economic logic becomes moral logic. Martian personnel will be selected based on specialties: geologists, aerospace engineers, medical technicians, roboticists, agricultural biologists. They are not tourists, they are infrastructure. Earth cannot afford redundancy on Mars in the early decades. If someone leaves, their replacement is not waiting at the door. Their replacement must be trained, transported, fed, and acclimated. The cost is multiplied each time a seat is lost. A body in a colony is cheaper than a body in transit. And then there is the dark truth of return vehicles. They are not lifeboats. They are missions. A rocket capable of carrying humans back requires fuel production facilities on Mars or a pre-supplied return stage waiting in orbit. Both options involve years of preparation. No colony will casually send a rocket to Earth because one person misses home. Launching for sentiment is as unthinkable as detonating your emergency oxygen to light a birthday candle. You don't do it, not because you're cruel, but because it would endanger everyone. Economics also shape identity. Residents who dream of returning become liabilities. Those who commit, who build greenhouses, train others, repair reactors, gain status. A culture of permanence forms naturally, reinforced by investment. Earth will praise astronauts who go to Mars, but it will not encourage those who want to come back. The narrative will shift from explorer to pioneer. A pioneer does not visit a frontier, they anchor it. Eventually, the question becomes reversed. Not why can't you return, but why would we send you back? By the time a colony stabilizes, the people living there are its most valuable asset. They embody training, adaptation, and resilience. Their bodies, their knowledge, their experience are worth more on Mars than on Earth. In a world defined by scarcity, you are not a passenger, you are infrastructure. And infrastructure does not take vacations. It remains maintained and monitored until it becomes inseparable from the system it sustains. Each colonist will carry multiple roles: engineer, medic, technician, farmer. Losing a single person could collapse dozens of systems. A return to Earth is not personal freedom. It is a structural failure. In small groups, redundancy is luxury. On Earth, if a mechanic resigns, you hire another. If a doctor moves away, clinics shift schedules and adjust staffing. Billions of people mean billions of potential replacements. But a Martian settlement is not a city. It is a finely tuned machine made of human parts. Every person arriving in the first decades is a specialist, deliberately chosen to perform not just one job, but several. No colonist is a single skill. Each is a bundle of competencies, all essential. A greenhouse biologist cannot only grow food. They also diagnose nutrient imbalances, maintain water pH systems, repair LED arrays, and manage microbe cultures that keep the soil alive. A mechanical engineer cannot simply fix a rover. They must understand power storage, rotor dynamics, atmospheric pressure effects, and emergency seal repairs. Even a medical officer might double as a psychologist, radiation dosimetry expert, and surgical technician. These overlapping duties are not optional. They are the scaffolding holding the colony upright. Earth citizens rarely grasp this. They imagine a small town, not a life support machine where every task is load-bearing. If one colonist leaves, the burden redistributes. A loss is not a vacancy. It is instability. Imagine a team of 20 where one person manages water recycling. Remove them, and water reclamation slows or fails. Suddenly, 20 people face dehydration or contamination. Another colonist must absorb the job with less experience, less training, and fewer hours to spare. Mistakes compound. Systems degrade. One person's departure becomes everyone's crisis. This interdependence shapes the social fabric. A colonist is never just themselves. They carry the lives of others in every shift and routine. Trust becomes structural. Respect becomes utilitarian. Conflict becomes dangerous, not because of emotion, but because a damaged relationship can derail cooperation between people who must repair the same oxygen separator or manage the same greenhouse line. On Mars, society is not built for comfort, it is built for survival. Leadership will understand this immediately. Policies will reflect it. Permission to return to Earth will not be granted lightly, not because leaders are cruel, but because the colony cannot afford it. A healthy, trained, adapted colonist is worth more than any material shipment. A departing specialist isn't losing a job, they are abandoning irreplaceable infrastructure. Colonists will internalize this reality. Over time, the expectation becomes cultural. You don't leave, you don't ask to leave. You solve problems where you are. Children born on Mars will grow up inside this compact society. To them, the idea of someone leaving on a whim will feel bizarre, like a heart deciding to exit the body because it feels restless. They will learn that roles are communal, not personal, that competence is survival, that absence is danger. By the time a colony reaches its second or third generation, the idea of returning to Earth may disappear entirely from social vocabulary. Earth becomes mythology, Mars becomes identity, and the colony becomes a web so tightly woven that removing a single thread means unraveling the whole design. In such a world, departure is not a right. It is a failure mode. Mars will not operate under Earth norms forever. Laws bend where survival demands. Citizenship, property, and identity form under pressure. A Martian may owe allegiance to the colony, not to Earth. Human governance evolved in abundance. Cities, nation-states, economic blocs, these systems draw power from populations that can afford inefficiency. Earth's democracies tolerate bureaucracy, debate, delay, and dissent because the planet can absorb mistakes. Rivers continue to run, crops still grow, markets rebound. Mars offers none of that margin. A single mismanaged policy can kill an entire settlement. Government there will not be a matter of preference, it will be a matter of engineering. In the early years, governance will reflect mission command. A handful of leaders will oversee food distribution, energy allocation, maintenance, and medical care. These decisions will not be voted on. They will not be argued in televised debates. They will be made urgently, often in minutes. Colonists will accept authority, not because they enjoy hierarchy, but because autonomy in space is lethal. The first Martian constitution will not be a document of personal liberty. It will be a diagram of systems that must never be allowed to fail. Eventually, power will grow sticky. Whoever controls oxygen supply controls civilization. Whoever monitors water access holds leverage over every household. Leadership can shape behavior not through ideology, but through scarcity. If a colonist disobeys protocol, you do not fine them. You reduce their energy allotment. You restrict their greenhouse access. The state becomes oxygen, power, shelter, politics, and survival fuse into one mechanism. Earth governments will try to retain control. They will insist on ownership of habitats, patents for life support technology, authority over legal disputes. But distance erodes influence. A message from Earth takes minutes to arrive and longer to interpret. The colony cannot wait for rulings from a planet that has never set foot in their dust storms. Mars will answer Mars. Communication latency doesn't just stretch time, it severs obedience. As the colony expands, new generations will be born without memories of Earth. Their identity will not derive from nations or flags, but from modules and sectors: the greenhouse wing, the reactor crew, the maintenance team. Instead of national borders, they will understand pressure boundaries. Instead of passports, access codes. Citizenship will be defined by function, not birthplace. A Martian child may be considered an adult once they can repair an airlock or maintain a filtration system, not once they reach a certain age. Property will follow different rules as well. On Earth, ownership is symbolic: land titles, deeds, bank accounts. On Mars, every cubic meter of living space is expensive. Every resource is finite. No one will own a greenhouse because one mistake in irrigation could starve a settlement. Habitat walls will not belong to the wealthy. They will belong to the collective. Even personal space will be negotiated. A room is not privacy. It is part of a life support lattice. In time, this pressure culture will produce politics unlike any on Earth. Conflict may center on radiation exposure, quotas, or greenhouse access, rather than taxes or ideology. Rebellions may form not over freedom of speech, but over ventilation protocols. Outsiders from Earth will look at these societies and see extremism. Martians will look back and see clarity. And then comes the most radical transformation: allegiance. A colonist who has spent years maintaining power grids in dust storms may not pledge loyalty to distant governments. They will pledge loyalty to the people who kept them alive. Home will not be the planet of their ancestors, but the dome they repaired at 3 a.m. during a solar event. They will belong to the colony, not because of patriotism, but because Mars demands it. Children conceived in low gravity may have altered physiology, bone density, lung capacity, immune function. They will be adapted to Mars more than Earth. Returning them would be like forcing a dolphin to live on land. Humanity evolved under the constant, heavy pull of Earth. Every stage of development, from embryo to toddler to adult, assumes 1G as its foundation. Bones grow dense because babies fall when they learn to walk. Hearts strengthen because the body must pump blood uphill. Even the shape of the skull is influenced by pressure, posture, and gravity. When a child is conceived and raised on Mars, none of those forces are present. Their biology will not be Earth's biology. It will be Martian from the moment cells begin to divide. During fetal development, gravity plays an invisible role. It influences how fluids settle, how the placenta delivers nutrients, how muscles flex and respond to weight. On Mars, the womb becomes a microgravity-adjacent environment. The fetus experiences less downward tug, altering how cartilage thickens and how spinal curves form. Tiny bones that expect stress do not receive it. They remain soft longer. They grow light, porous, optimized for a world where lifting oneself requires minimal resistance. To that child, Martian gravity feels not merely comfortable, it is the baseline. After birth, adaptation intensifies. Crawling requires less effort. Standing comes early, but not because of strength, because there is so little weight to carry. A toddler on Mars may spring forward lightly, taking steps with an eerie lack of strain. Their joints will never feel the heavy demands of Earth playgrounds. Their posture will organize itself around balance, not resistance. For them, the human gait as we know it will feel slow, clumsy, and unnecessarily laborious. The lungs adapt as well. Martian habitats, even pressurized, will likely offer slightly different oxygen and humidity profiles than Earth. Children raised there will inhale air that has been filtered, recycled, chemically managed. Their alveoli will mature under these conditions, possibly making them more efficient at low-pressure respiration. But reverse the equation. Place that child on Earth, where every breath is thicker, heavier, full of bacteria and pollen, and their lungs may rebel. They might experience asthma-like symptoms or chronic inflammation simply from breathing a world too alive. The immune system will follow the environment. A child born on Mars will not grow up rolling in dirt or encountering crowds of strangers or touching animals. Their microbial education will be shallow. Their immune system, like a poorly socialized animal, will learn to exist with minimal challenge. On Earth, the same child would be overwhelmed. Common colds, benign bacteria, even outdoor spores could trigger severe reactions. Earth would feel toxic not because it is hostile, but because their physiology was never taught how to coexist with it. Psychology will diverge too. A Martian child will not grow up seeing oceans or thunder or forests. Their imagination will form around domes, corridors, airlocks, LED grow lights, and quiet skies. Their concept of outside will not be freedom, it will be hazard. They will not ask to play in open fields. They will ask how much oxygen is left, or whether dust storms are coming. On Earth, they may be terrified of rain, confused by rivers, overwhelmed by crowds. The sights and sounds of civilization would not be familiar, they would be incomprehensible. Even body proportions could shift. With reduced load bearing, limbs may grow longer relative to torso. Muscle distribution might bias toward precision movements rather than force. A Martian child might possess agility in low gravity that becomes frailty under Earth weight. Asking them to adjust would be like asking a deep-sea creature to breathe surface air. Their bodies would protest at a cellular level. Earth is our cradle, but Mars will be theirs. The first generation born there will not be Earthlings living off-world. They will be something new, humans shaped by a different planet, molded by its physics, its limitations, and its silence. And bringing them back would not be a homecoming. It would be exile into an environment their biology never agreed to inhabit. Over decades, Mars grows familiar. Earth becomes distant, a place of origin. Eventually, Martians will not return because they simply won't belong there any longer. Not biologically, not mentally, not culturally. At first, every colonist will look at Earth the way a sailor looks back at the harbour, something comforting, a promise that if things go wrong, there will be a way back. But as years pass, the harbour becomes abstract. You stop imagining the streets you once walked. You forget the scent of wet grass after a storm. You stop remembering the constellations as they appeared in your childhood sky, because Mars shows you a different night. Earth becomes a symbol rather than a place, a memory of humidity, crowds, oceans, and seasons that no longer shape your days. Generations deepen that distance. Children born on Mars will know Earth only through stories, recordings, and simulations. Earth will feel cinematic to them. Blue skies, so bright they seem unnatural. Forests too dense to navigate. Animals so numerous that danger exists at every turn. They will hear of oceans large enough to swallow continents and find the idea absurd. Why would people build cities next to something so volatile? In their world, stability means sealed domes and measured oxygen levels. For them, safety is predictable, not wild. Culture finishes what biology begins. Every ritual that defines Martian life reinforces identity. The day someone extends the greenhouse crop yield becomes a festival. The anniversary of the first child born safely underground becomes a landmark. The memory of first frost on Martian windows will be whispered like folklore. These are not just milestones, they are the mythology of a planet that has accepted humanity and forced it to adapt. Earth holidays will fade. Mars will create its own rhythm, its own meaning, its own calendar of hardship and endurance. Technology accelerates separation. The first colonists will depend on Earth for components, machines, medical knowledge. Later generations will manufacture their own. 3D printers will replace shipping routes. Bioreactors will replace Earth agriculture. When survival no longer hinges on shipments from home, home becomes a word without function. A Martian may know that Earth exists but have no practical reason to return. The supply chain will not run backward. Even values transform. Earth is a planet of choice. Billions of people live beside strangers, pursue hobbies, switch careers, argue freely. Mars will reward reliability, competence, and interdependence. A person who cannot maintain oxygen recyclers is not unskilled. They are dangerous. A colonist who works through storms to secure solar panels is not ambitious. They are essential. Not as the absence of obligation, but as the privilege of contributing to survival. The ethics of comfort will feel childish. The ethics of responsibility will feel sacred. Eventually, return becomes unthinkable not because rockets cannot carry people back, but because the people who left Earth have evolved away from it. Their lungs accept recycled air. Their bones expect weak gravity. Their minds orient towards silence, toward dust, toward the slow pulse of a world that demands vigilance. Earth, with its abundance and noise and untamed ecosystems, becomes overwhelming. Like a dream that fades upon waking, it loses sharpness. A Martian walking through a crowded Earth city might feel not nostalgia, but vertigo. Air that tastes wet, skies that feel too bright, rain falling without warning, birds moving unpredictably in the open. They would not think, "I am home." They would think, "I am somewhere that was never built for me." That is the culmination of all the changes: gravity, biology, psychology, language, culture, economy. They build toward a quiet truth. One day, Mars will not be a frontier, it will be a birthplace. And Earth will not be a home to return to, it will be the myth whispered in classrooms, the story told around communal tables, the distant blue planet where humanity began, and where some say it once belonged. You have drifted across a future where bodies reshape, hearts relearn, and minds bend beneath another sky. Not through catastrophe, but through adaptation. Mars does not destroy humanity, it edits it. Slowly. Think of the forces that shaped you. The gravity that held your bones in place. The atmosphere that taught your lungs how to breathe. The microbes that trained your immune system. The oceans that carved your senses. These are not abstract facts. They are the blueprint of your existence. You are, down to the smallest fiber, a creature forged by Earth. And yet, if humanity spreads beyond our cradle, we will become something else. Not tragically, but inevitably. A Martian will not look to Earth with longing. They will look with curiosity, the way we look at fossils or ancient ruins, symbols of a distant origin. They will walk under a salmon-colored sky, hear the quiet hum of life support systems, and feel peace. Because what began as survival will become culture. What began as compromise will become identity. You and I are alive at a moment when this transformation is still theoretical. We can lie in our beds, close our eyes, and return to familiar winds and familiar rain. But somewhere in the future, humanity will sleep on another world. They will dream of dust, pressure domes, and crimson horizons, and they will wake with no desire to return to the blue planet we call home. Be grateful for your place in the cosmos, for the gravity that holds you, for the air that feeds you, for the trees that shelter you, and for the oceans that reflect the sun. Thank you for listening. Rest well, traveler. May your dreams carry you to distant worlds and gently back again.